Hello everyone. Welcome to month 2 of our Tealing Good block of the month. So sorry we're a little bit late. I had no idea it was already almost 10 after. We were just talking and I've been trying to wrap my mind around all this. But yeah, we are on month 2. So today we're going to be talking about doing, in month 2, we're going to be doing block numbers 2 and block number 7. So let's do a little bit of recap. I want to thank you again for all hanging out with me today. Be sure to like, comment, and share. That's always really good. But today is all about the Tealing Good, and this is month 2, so we still have 8 more months to go. We go all the way to month 10, so I don't think we're going to end until around November when everything gets finished. And as always, all of the block of the months will be on the last Tuesday of the month at 1 o'clock Central Standard Time. So, except August. I might have to change that one up a little bit because I have to be out of town for a wedding. So it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, so last month we did our very first block of the month, and we did block number 1, and we did block number 8. And on block number 1, you only had to make 1, and on block number 8, we made 4 of them. And I'll walk you over to the ironing station to show you those. So, but I did want to take a moment to go over some of the things that I am using in this presentation. Of course, when you got the kit that came from Martelli, you got all the fabrics, you got the patterns, you've got the seam allowance ruler, because I haven't used it yet, but it'll be used later on as we go throughout here. And then you got the 12.5-inch square with the fussy cut window. And that was mainly if you needed to square up your block at the end. One of the things that I had talked at, because all the blocks are 12.5 inches. So if you got a little bit over, you could square it up. But most of mine have been coming out right on at 12.5 inches. The reason for that was you needed to have perfected your 1/4-inch seam allowance. If that's the one thing, if I haven't said anything else, when you're doing this, be sure to practice and perfect your 1/4-inch seam allowance. And I actually recommend that you do a scant quarter. So what is a scant quarter? It's just sliding your needle over about 2 or 3 threads, just giving that little bit. Because in just the pressing and folding back, you lose a little bit in just that amount when you're going to press everything open, from whether you're making half square triangles or something. So I always recommend doing a scant quarter. And I know there's some people who they don't understand scant quarter, or they don't know why would you do that when it says a quarter. But it seems like for me, I do a scant quarter, and because of that, all of my pieces come out exact. Now the second thing is, when you're cutting your fabrics, you've got to be perfect in cutting them out correctly and getting the correct size. One of the things that I had talked about last month was writing everything down. So I have myself this little notebook, and this has been a huge help for me. And I'm sure there would have been a better way to graph it out, but this was just something I had done quickly in organizing all of my fabrics. When you got the kit, you had all of the fabrics, all the cutting, and you had for the amounts, not for the months. You just had them for the amounts. And they were labeled from fabric A all to fabric T. So all of that was all done for you. So all you had to do was now follow the pattern that you received, so that you can know which ones you need to cut for the month. So one of the things that I had done to kind of keep everything organized was I put all of my fabrics in a large bag, and I put a label on it so I don't get them messed up on what I'm doing. I kept everything all right here. And the second thing that I learned that kind of helped me in keeping everything together was using a notebook when I go to cut them. So when we did block 1, I went through here and I saw what fabrics, because in it you're going to have this page here, and it talks about here's the fabrics that you're using. So when we did the first month, we were using fabric E, F, I, M, T, A, D, E, A. So it just showed you what fabric is going to be used for each block right here. So when I went to do my cutting of, say, A, I went ahead and flipped through to find out where else is A being used. So on the very front page, you had this page right here. So here is fabric A. And it tells you right here what month you're using it for. You're going to use it for month 1, month 2, and month 9, if you see that there for A. So when you pulled out your fabric A, I went ahead and wrote on my notebook here, A all the way down to T. And then I saw, okay, A, that was the month I was using A, and it said I'm using it for month 1 and 2 and 9. So I went to this page here on the first month, and here I looked at A, and it's going to tell you right here on the pattern, if you look here, A, it was going to need a fat quarter. So I wrote A, month 1, fat quarter 1. So I wrote it here. And then for knowing that it was being used for month 2, which is the one month we're on now, I went ahead and flipped to month 2, and I see that A was being used. I went to that page where it says fabrics, and it says I'm using a fat eighth. Also at the top of my page, I wrote it down. An S, fat quarter, fat eighth, fat, so I got fat quarter, fat eighth. So I just kind of had that was for S. So fat quarter is 18 by 21 inches. A fat eighth is 9 by 21 inches. A fat 16th is 4.5 by 21 inches. So I wrote those down, and then I went ahead and just did another thing. A third of a yard is 12 inches. If it says I need a third of a yard, if I'm doing 3/4 yard, that's 27 inches by width of fabric, and then a half yard is 18 inches by width of fabric. So I wrote those down just for me to be able to keep it, remember quickly, as I'm doing my cutting. So going back to fabric A, I said I had to use for block 1, block 2, and block 9. So then block 2, I needed a fat eighth, knowing that a fat eighth is 9 inches by 21. And then I go all the way back to number 9, and it said number 9, the last time we're using fabric A, going over to this page, I needed a fat quarter. So I can't remember how much you received of fat A, or a block of fabric A, but you went ahead and I cut all those. So if I pull out my A, of course I've already used it for block 1 and block 2, but I still have, and I labeled it, this is my last piece. I saved all of my scraps, and the instructions recommend save all of your scraps. You might need it. You might need to cut an extra piece because you made a boo-boo or something. So I went ahead and labeled it. Here is my fat quarter for number 9. So I labeled that, and it's in here, and I won't use it again. I won't pull this out again until I go to month 9 on that. So I did that and I only pulled out, when I did month 1, I only pulled out the fabrics that I needed, as you saw me say here. So on month 2, I'm needing E, F, I, M, T, A, D, H, L, M. So I pulled all of those out. So here they are. So here is all of my ones where they're all labeled, and I put them in here, and I got me these big bags, and I think you can get like 2-gallon bags. That would probably work for this. And I got me a highlighter, and I just wrote what it is on it. So what letter of that fabric is, so I don't get them mixed up. That's the only way I could do this to wrap my brain around it. So, and then I did that for every one that I pulled out. So when I pulled out, the next fabric, if I pulled out an E, so I looked here and I thought, okay, where is E being used? I would go right back to the front again. Well, E is being used for month 1, 3, 4, 8, 9. I would write down all of those on here, and I put down on here all of the amounts that they had to be. And as I did my cutting for each one, I went ahead and highlighted it that I had them all done. If you see right here, fabric B, that one's only going to be used for the binding, and it's for month 10, so I won't even be touching that one until we get to the end. I have not touched fabric J yet. It's a half yard, and that's not going to be used till month 5. If I go down to N, I haven't even used the letter N yet, and that's going to be used for 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 9. So, and 9. So I haven't touched the fabric that's in N yet because it hasn't been needed, but it will be needed next month. So as I was going through and going ahead and cutting my amounts for every single month, I went ahead and I put a pin in it, and I've got it saved on here, so they're all ready to go. So it's going to be easier as you go along if you take the time to go ahead and get the amounts cut for all the pieces. So I hope that kind of helps. Well, anyway, Another thing that we have done since we last spoke is you can now go to the website and just type in block of the month, and you will see that the pattern has now been made available for those of you who want to do this and follow along with your own fabrics. I still need to go over there and check out and see how much fabric I have left. I might have enough left to maybe make one, maybe two more kits. I'll have to see. But now you can go online and you could purchase the pattern. So what you're getting with that pattern, I think it's like $25 for the pattern, but you're going to get every page, you're going to get the 2 patterns. You're going to get every page of the block of the month, all of them. Plus, you're also going to get what's called the kit version. So say you didn't want to follow along with the block of the month, but you just want to go ahead and cut your fabrics to make each block in the kit. So this is where you're not doing it as block of the month, but you can just cut the fabric and just make the whole thing how you would do it that way. But you're also going to get the big sheet. We're going to do this in the, I think it's a 9x17. You're also going to get the big sheet to go with it too. It's all going to be, every page is going to be in color so that you'll be able to easily see where the fabrics are laying out. So you're going to get all of these pieces if you purchase the pattern separately. We also have something else that, and the page is not finished. We still got a few other things on there. But you're also going to see on that page, we've got the special, let's see, we're calling it the Block of the Month Specialty Template Kit. Is that what we're calling that, James?
Yes.
Okay, so in that kit, you're going to get, from what I could see as I went through the entire pattern of the templates that I see that's going to be useful in making this kit. So we're calling it the Block of the Month Specialty Template Kit. It only goes for this pattern here for the Tealing Good. And all of those, there's two templates missing, but when we get them done, we'll get them to you. You're going to get a 2-inch square. You're going to get a 2 5/8 inch square, so it's a kind of an odd number, but 2 5/8. You're going to get a 3-inch square. You'll get the 3 1/2-inch square, which we're using this one a lot. A 3 7/8 inch square, a 4-inch square, a 5 1/8 inch square, a 6 1/2-inch square, a 6 7/8 inch square, and a 7 1/2-inch square. So these are sizes that I know that are in this. Plus, you're going to get the 3 1/2 by 6 1/2-inch rectangle, and there's also and the last two that I haven't got in this set yet is a 3 1/2 by 9 1/2 and a 3 1/2 by 12 1/2. So those are the rectangles that are being used in this pattern. And then there is this other ruler that is not, that you're going to be getting. This is 1 5/8 by 20 inches. This is another thing that you'll be using later on in the pattern. So these, from what I can see, are all the templates, and everything I do, I use a Martelli template on it. So these are the templates that if you want to add these to those of you who already got the kit, we got them on there. You're seeing that price of $149.99, but I believe that you're going to get a 20, am I correct? A 25% discount. So I think it's going to be like $112.50 or something like that. There is not a discount on the pattern, but there is a discount on the templates. And now some of the other things that's going to be on that page once we get them uploaded is other tools that I'm using that will be helpful in putting the Block of the Month together. And it's going to be the Martelli marking pencil. I find because we're dealing with a lot of darker colors, I'm using the white, the lead that's in it, the white. Another tool, of course, that's not part of it, a regular pencil, but this is a Martelli tool. You're going to need this. The Martelli clips, I am using a boatload of clips because they're holding all, if you look here, they're holding all of my pieces together. I mean, I'm using so many clips. So if you need to add more clips, now would be that time to get them. So we'll be getting those on there. You see me using our block presses, and I'll be using them in a minute. My 7-inch block press is going to be there, plus the 13-inch block press, because that's my final one that I'll use for my final pressing when I've got my block completed, and I get a good iron, and then I set that on there. And of course, at the end, I'll be doing it again to make sure everything stays nice and crisp and pristine. So that's something else that's going to be hitting on that page pretty soon. So watch for that. Trying to think, was there any other tools that I can? and I'm trying to find out if we're going to add our new iron to that one. I'm trying to get some information because I use this a lot. And as I'm in between, when I'm chain piecing, I don't want to jump up and run to the main ironing station. I just want to quickly do something in my little nest. So I'm going to find out if I can also add the Martelli iron onto that as one of the tools that we use. But that is the main things. Of course, the rotary cutter, you know, we're going to do that. So here's some other things that you need to have that I find that it's been helpful for me is lots of Post-it notes. I am using these and using these because a lot of times when you start making a block and then you make the next section of the block and it changes names on you. So instead of, I just use these little Post-it notes. I'm using them a lot. I'm using the pins because they're easier just to pin the, or clips, they're easier to pin or clip them on there to hold them in place as I'm moving on to the next section. So when I was cutting everything, those are the main things. Of course, if you want to use the Martelli marking tool to highlight what the sizes are onto your templates that you can. Of course, I'm using a highlighter as I'm writing my things down and highlighting things off, and I'm using my big Sharpie to write on my bags as I'm doing all the pieces. So I'm still moving forward. I'm just talking. I haven't read any comments. Do I have any questions so far before we start moving on to the next thing? Anything out there?
No, I got info on the kit, but I think you nailed that.
Okay, and here's another thing. We're also going to have this binder. Shannon's getting ready to get that up there. So we're going to get you the binder. This has been a godsend. Having this binder, everything is protected in here. I can easily just have it open to the page that I'm working on. And then we're going to offer, I think it's 25 sheet protectors. So you need at least 25 sheet protectors for doing for having the binder. So I am using this. It's so easy to just to flip it open to the page, and as I'm working on what I'm working on, I easily get to page to what I'm doing, and it's protecting your investment of that pattern. So that's something else that's going to be hitting the website so pretty soon. Let me see. I'm going to pull it up and see if I'm missing any questions, because I want to be able to have feedback if you have any questions on anything that I'm doing as we're putting this together, so I don't miss anything, because I want this kind of be an informal conversation that's going on between us as we're doing this. But again, the show is always going to be here on the page that you're on right now. It's going to be at 1 o'clock Central Standard Time on the last Tuesday of the month, except I think August, and I'll give you a heads up on that if I have to change that. So let me take a look of where we are on questions so far. I'm not wanting to go to that. Let's see. Just looking at questions. I wish I could just a little bit more for me right now. Oh my goodness, Ron, are you okay? Just getting back to normal after 2 ER visits. My daughter was in the hospital all last week. She's doing better now. Let's see. Now, that's a good question, Misty. You're asking about, are the prices reflecting the 25% off? So when did they see that, James? After the show? Yeah. So after the show, we're going to get those prices reflected. Right now, he's just got the, we're just building this page right now. So just bear with us a little bit. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Okay. Can I get info on a kit if there's any available? Okay, so I'm going to work on that also for you, Misty. So,
Olivia's jumping on it.
Okay.
And then I'll go take her.
So what I'm going to do is Friday, I have been swamped with everything. So I've been trying to get over to the storefront. I know we have a lot of the fabrics. I know I'm missing 2, but I believe I can substitute. So I'm going to go over there and see what kits I can make, or if I just have fabrics available. But I'm going to see what I have available. Out of all of the fabrics from A through T, I know I'm missing 2 bolts, but I think I have fabric in the store. It's batik, and I think I can match that color really good in case I can't get it from, these fabrics all come from Wilmington. So I already went online to see if I can get these fabrics again, get a whole new set of them, and they're just not out there anymore. Another thing is, I hope that answered that for you, Missy. So let me get on that and see if I can find out about what fabrics we have available for the kit. Now, if I remember, the kit was $350, and that included all the fabrics, the pattern, plus the seam allowance ruler. It included the 12.5-inch fussy cut window, and I believe we also included the 3 1/4 yards of backing fabric that you're going to need. So that was the whole kit to make this quilt, and it's a big size quilt. If I'm not mistaken, this quilt is 98 by 102, so it's a good size quilt, a good queen that would have a good drape on it. See if there's anything else that I'm missing. I think that's about all that I needed to talk about as for all the things that we have going on. Now the next thing is I'm already in the process of looking to see what next block of the month that we're going to do. And there's several really good programs out there. And of course I really love how well the Wilmington program is. So I probably will stick with doing Wilmington fabrics again. They have them in regular, cotton fabric that's not batik, and they have kit sets in the batik. And I really love working with batik because it's so crisp. It's a lot crisper. It's easier to work with, and you don't really have to starch it or just press it. It just stays nice and crisp and easy to sew. So I guess I want the feedback from you, whether you make comments here or if you email me at learn@martellinoceans.com. Hey, I would love to be a part of the next block of the month when we do it. Specify, do you have a preferred color? I saw some absolutely beautiful ones that was like in purples and blues and greens. I saw some really stunning ones. So if you have an idea of some of the things that you want, just kind of shoot me an email to learn@martellinoceans.com or make a comment here. What would you like to see for our next block of the month? Because I want to go ahead and get that ball rolling, and then we might do it simultaneously with what we're doing right now. It might just choose a different day that we do the block of the month if we start another one before, like within the next couple of months. So that's what I'm working on right now, so I can get another one in the works for you guys. All right, so I hope everybody is doing well. What I have done, and I'm going to just go ahead and show you because I've already cut all of my fabrics and got everything all prepped. So I'm just going to pull out some of the ones that I had done and some of the things that I kind of do when I'm labeling everything so I don't lose track of what I'm doing. So like here is my eye fabric, and I believe on eye we had to cut 8 3.5 by 6.5 inch rectangles. So you see that's what I've got right here. But then I also wrote on here the number 2 because I know that this one is going to be used in the block 2. And then here is L, and it is also, I had to cut 8 3.5 by 6.5, and I need it for number 2. Here's my M, also 8 of these for number 2, and then my R, 8 of those for number 2. So I went ahead and put what blocks by just kind of looking ahead and figured out where these are going to be used. And so these are my extra ones. So I just used, like I said, a boatload of those little bitty Post-it notes. They have just been very invaluable. So if I go to this one right here, here's just some more of them where I'm using the clips, I'm using the pins just to hold everything in place. Here is A's, all done. I needed 8 3.5 inch squares. I needed 4 of C. I needed 8 of D. So I just kind of wrote down the amount, and then if I can see where they're going to be used, I put the number 2 on here. If they're going to be both, I just kind of left it alone. But I just kind of jotted everything down so that it was easier for me to find them and quickly move on as you go to where you're starting assembling the block. So I believe this is where you'd cut a 3.5 inch strip, and then I just used my 3.5 inch square, and I just went ahead and cut my squares. And then the last one bag I got right here is all the other ones. Here's S, where I had to have 24 2-inch squares, 8 2-inch squares. Here's Q, where I had to cut 8 2-inch squares. So these are just some more of the ones that I had cut, and I just kind of put them all in this little bag. So I know that all of these that are all cut from every fabric that was needed are all right here, ready to go. So what I have in front of me here is everything to make block 7, all the pieces ready. And then here's everything I need to make block 2, all the pieces ready. So let's go over to the ironing station, and I'm going to show you what we're actually going to be sewing up today. And I'm going to grab these. So here's what we've already done. This is what we done last month. We only had to make one of block of month 1. We only had to do one of block 1. If I'm not mistaken, this is the centerpiece of the quilt right here. This is the centerpiece. And then we also had to make 4 of block 8. And here's all 4 of block 8. And last one, well, here it is. This is also block 8. So all of them are right here. So when I get done with all of my pieces, I go ahead and give them a really good press. I'm using my big 13 by 13 because it completely covers it. And I have these bags that I put my blocks in. So here is block 2. This is the one we're getting ready to do today. I'm going to go ahead and set this one here. So this is block 2. And we're going to be, I'm just going to make 1 today, but you will be making 4 of block 2. So that's this one right here. And then here's my bag that's going to go in at the end. And then this one is block 7 for month 2. And we're going to be making 4 of these. This one is interesting because each one of these, I believe, are, maybe no, those are the same. Maybe it's this one. Yeah, this one here, there's some difference on these. So just got to pay attention, as you're putting them together, that you get the right color going where you need for them to go when we're making our flying geese. So this is a simple block. You've got this little 4 patch here, but here you've got a covered quarter here, and here you've got the 4 flying geese here. And I tell you, by the end of this block of the month, you should be a pro at making flying geese units. And then here you've just got the single blocks, 3.5-inch squares that, to finish it off. And then on this one here, again, you're doing more flying geese. I believe these 2 are the same, and I believe these 2 are the same, but the center of here was a little bit different. So it looks like you're doing a lot of work here, but you've got these pieces right here. That's your main block that you've done, and I believe it was a 3.5-inch, but you're adding the covered corners of different fabrics here, and then on this one right here, you've got the same fabric on the outside as you have on the inside. So when it all goes together, you're making this cute little secondary pattern that's right here. So this is, we're going to be learning some really good skills on doing covered corners, and I'm going to teach you some little tricks on things that I do to make sure it comes out just right. This is one of the reasons why you're going to be using a pencil or using a white marking tool, because you are going to be drawing a lot of lines across the back of a lot of these squares that you cut, because you're going to be using them for the flying geese, the covered corners, things like that, little stitch and flip things that you're going to be doing. So you need to be really precise on drawing that line. You don't want to really be off. But then when I'm sewing it, I don't always sew right on the line. I'm actually sewing just a thread or 2 over from that line, so that when I flip it back, it just lines up perfectly. So I'll show you how that all goes. All right, so we're going to start with block number, I'm trying to remember which one we do first. I think let me look at the book, because it tells me which one we're going to do first, and then I'll pull that one out, because I like to have, the sample. Of course, you don't have the sample in front of you. You have the book in front of you. So going to month 2. The first block they're going to have us do is, oh my goodness, I guess we're just going to be putting them all together. All right, so I guess we'll start with block 7. So that is going to be this one, because I think that one is not as much work as what you have for block 2. So we're going to put together block 7 first. So these are all the components that I need for block 7. So you got 4 different flying geese. So I got them all right here. And then I think these pieces right here is what's going to be the centerpieces for it. All right, so going into, after I have everything all cut, we're going to be doing, well, I wonder if those are for block 2, 1A, 1B. You know what? Block 7 is not where we're going to go, because if I'm going to follow along and where we are with the block, they actually have us on doing block 2. All right, so going to block 2, get my glasses on so I can read what I'm going to. So you've had to mark all of your blocks. It's going to tell you how many blocks you have to draw your lines on. So if you take a look at the very beginning, on the wrong side, at line item number 3, it says on the wrong side of all the fabrics that were H, K, and L 3.5-inch squares, then you're going to pull 32 of the T 3.5-inch squares, and then all fabrics that are K, Q, and S, and those are all the 2-inch squares. You're going to draw your line from corner to corner, and so I've done that. Took the time, takes a minute just to quickly draw your line. So I just used one of my smaller one of my smaller templates and I just line it on there exact so I can draw my line. I tested it a couple times because I want to make sure I get it right on the money every time I put those on there. And then once you have all of those lines done, so then you're going to go into the next part, and that's going to be in the construction. All right, I see a big comment on here, so let me see what I can, if I'm missing something. All right, let's see. After the first class last month, I ordered clips, marking pens, and large press. I feel, let me, Miss Joan, let me find out what we can do, because, yeah, you jumped the gun on that one, but I think we can probably backdate it and figure out what to do. That's going to be a downstairs question. I'll talk to Shannon and see what we can do for that one. And Misty wants purple. So I saw there is a stunning one in purple batiks. I really am leaning towards that one. I think I've even said that a couple times. I already have a few of the templates that's offered in the bundle. So I was thinking also, I know a lot of you probably have the the even numbers and the half sizes. So I wanted to see if if you want to get the full bundle, but I also was talking that I might just have a separate one, and I'll have to get the pricing on that, where we just have the ones that are not the common ones that's in our catalog. So I know a lot of you probably already have the 2, the 3, the 3.5, the 4, and 6.5, and the 7, the 6.5 and the 7.5. So these are probably the ones, a lot of you might already have these. So what I want to see is about having the odd numbers you might not have. So that would be the 2 and 5/8, the 3 and 7/8, the 5 and 1/8, the 6 and 7/8, the 3.5 by 6.5, the 3.5 by 9.5, the 3.5 by 12.5, and of course our ruler, our little piece right here, that is 1 5/8 by 20 inches, because you'll be using this somewhere. So I might have it where you can get the full bundle, but I might have it where if you just want the specialty ones that are outside of the ones that we typically have in our that's already online with our catalog, I'm going to see if I can have it separate and then find out what the pricing would be. That was a really, so please, okay, yes, please on the odd numbers. Well, the next question is, do you have the evens? Because do I need to add the 2, 3, and the 4 in with this bundle? Because these are the ones that a lot of people don't have the evens. They just have the 2.5, 3.5, 4.5. So do I put these in with it too, which I didn't know. So, but yeah, these are, you can pick up the 2, 3s, and 4s. But do you want them with the specialty odd shaped numbers? So that might be something I'm looking to do that too. So you have the even, there you go. Some people don't have the even, some people have. So I'm thinking I'm just going to have all of these put in, where if you want the full bundle, here's all it is. But if you only need these specialty ones, here they are. So I might go ahead and have that separated out. So I just got these cut this week, and I was trying to combine the 3.5, the 6.5, and the 9.5 with cut lines in it. Just be one big template, but have the little cuts in it. It just didn't work. So we're just going to have the individual 3.5 by 6.5, 3.5 by 9.5, 3.5 by 12.5. I already tested it; it didn't work. So that's what. Give us a minute. We'll work on that and see what would be if we was to divide it out, what the cost on that would be, and we'll get that up there too for those of you who just want the specialty sizes that we have. All right, so let's take a step back. So I'm going to set these aside because these are the ones because I'm going to have block 1 and 2 done. So this is going to be what I need to do my 3 and 4 for 7 and 2. So I'm going to set that aside. All right, so going back to the page that we're on, put my glasses back on. We are going to say, so arrange the marked fabric, T fabric, 3.5 squares on one end of a fabric R 3.5, 6. So I think that's where I have this right here. So that would be this one. And then I got to you're making 8 units of these. But just to make one of those, you have to have 2. So I've got one of them done. So I just got to make the other one. So that is this one right here. You're making a flying geese. So that's this one here. And this one is going to be called Unit 1A. So that's what I did. I would write Unit 1A. I need 8 of them. And there's going to be 2 per block for block 2. So I wrote that on my little Post-it note. So that kind of keeps everything lined up for me. And then to make Unit 1B, which is going to be the next one on line item 3, So it's the same thing. You got unit 1B, you need 8 total, 2 per block for block 2. So if you're looking at block numbers, this is for block 2, like I had showed you earlier, you only have, of the flying geese, you have 2 of the one kind and 2 of the other kind, so that's ear. But when we go to block number 7, each one of those are different. So I've got that here, so we'll go sew those up. And then when we'll get to that, so this is going to get my unit 1A and unit 1B done. So we're going to go to the sewing machine, and we're going to go ahead and get these 2 sewn and pressed and ready to go. So let's head on over there and get these taken care of. All right, since these are flying geese, you're not, you don't have, I don't have my needle set on the 1/4 inch seam. It is literally on the, I have it where it's just straight dead center. So to make this, you're going to take your 3.5 inch square with your line, and you have the line facing up. And of course, you would have drawn your line on the wrong side. Have fun trying to figure that out. I had a hard time trying to figure out what was the right and the wrong side on batiks. I need to ask some of you people who are all about batiks, how do you figure it out? Because they look so similar to me. All right, so here is with my line. So when I'm getting ready to start sewing, I'm looking at this line, and I have it lined up on the corner, going to corner here. And what I'm knowing is that this is going to be flipping back to onto the one side. It's going to be flipped back. So when I'm getting ready to start doing my sewing, I got to figure out, well, which side of that line am I going to have my stitch, or if I have it right on the line, or if I have it 1 or 2 threads over. So knowing that this is going to be flipping this way, I am going to have it based on how I am sewing. So I'm going to start sewing here at this point, and I'm going to be sewing up to the point of the covered geese, you know, of the geese. So I'm going to get right here, flying geese. So I'm going to start right here, but I'm going to have my needle I'm going to have it based on from where I'm sewing. It's going to be just left of that line, just left of the line, maybe just a thread over. I'm not going to sew right on the line. I'm going to put it a thread or so over. So as I'm sewing all the way down, that just being that little bit over will get it to where it's going to line up right where I need for it to line up. So I don't have to do any squaring up. It's still going to be the size I need it to be, because the finished size is going to be 3.5 by 6.5. So, and when I am doing a project like this where I'm getting ready to sew on this little point right here, this is where I like using my little leader for this, so that it doesn't, and of course I'm not doing it because a lot of you might not have that, but if you have a machine where you can change out your presser plate, where it's just a hole in it instead of the wide, you change that out. You don't have that problem sometime where it feeds down into the machine, but I'm just keeping it as if it was a machine that I just got. So I am sewing on an M7, but I'm just doing the basic stitch, and I have it at 1.8, which is the basic stitch that when you're doing on the 1/4 inch, so it doesn't rip out. It's a really close stitch on here. So I always have a leader when I'm going to be doing something that's going to be starting on a corner, on a point like this, so that my machine doesn't eat it, to say. And when I go to set this on to start doing my sewing across, I literally am setting it to where my needle is going to be just going just to the, on my left of that line that I had drawn, and then I'm just going to sew all the way down. So I'm just following that line and maybe just to the left of it, so I come off on that point. So when I get it done, where's my little snips? When I know to fold this back here, it's going to be right on the money where I need for it to be. Because before we can sew the next side, we have to trim this off. Now you could go to your machine, or you could go to your table and just cut that off with the rotary cutter. But for me, I just like grabbing my scissors and trimming that off. It's just as easy. So let me grab my little, I'm going to grab my little 9-inchers here. So I've got it. I went ahead and pressed it. I found it's easier if I press in between. And now I'm just going to trim it 1/4 inch. I always like to test it before I do that cut. You know, it's check once or check twice, cut once. You don't want to overdo it. So now this one is ready to go for the next size. So that one's done. So then when I get my other square, I'm going to lay it on here so that it's going the opposite direction. And that way I'm going to be able to have my little seam allowance right here because it covers it a little bit. And now I'm going to go from the point down. So when I'm doing it this way, I'm still going to be stitching to the left, because if I had flipped it around and started that corner again, now I'm going to have to switch it over to the right, just right of that line. So I want to keep it all uniform for me, so it's going to be just left of that line. And because it's still starting off with a little bit of that point right there, I go ahead and get my little leader in there, just a little scrap to hold it in place. And I am just going to sew again, just right there on that line, but to the left of that line, and go all the way down, following my line until I get to the point. My threads. Now this is a project that would be really, really good at chain piecing. You could get all of your pieces together, have them all labeled, and so that you don't lose track of what you're doing, but you could get them all done and quickly, but we're just going to do it one at a time. So I've got it where now I've got my good 1/4 inch seam allowance right here. That's very important. You don't want to lose your point, so you always want to make sure you have that good seam allowance there. And then I'm just going to go ahead and trim that off. Now here's a little hint. A lot of people won't see this, and they don't want to waste fabric, right? So if you want to take the time to do this as you're making this, you can go ahead and sew another stitch, and I think you're going to do it about 1/2 inch from, so to me, I'm going to just sew it 1/4 inch from the edge. So you want to have about a 1/2 inch gap as you're sewing down before you cut it. So you want this to be about 1/2 inch between the two seams, so I'm going to measure that. That should be right about at a 1/2 inch. Yeah, it's a 1/2 inch. So now you can make tiny little 1/2 square triangles. If you cut between that line right there, you still have your flying geese ready to go for your quilt, but if you take the time and sew a 1/2 inch over from the stitch that you had made for your flying geese, now you've got 1/2 square triangles that you can just save all your little 1/2 square triangles and make a secondary project with that. Isn't that cool? Just doing an extra 1/2 inch. You're not losing anything, but if you just sew a 1/2 inch, that way you have some things that you can do for later. I have a lot of people that don't like throwing away or wasting fabric, so they will just, if they're making something where they're going to have to cut it, they'll just go ahead and sew that extra stitch so that now they have another little square. And I think this square is, well, this is a 2.5 inch. You're going to have a 2.5 inch square. Of course, you might want to square it up a little bit to make it exactly, but you're going to have a little 2.5 inch square without having to throw away this piece that's not sewed. So just a thought, if you want to take the time to take that extra stitch and save those pieces, and you could have a secondary little project. You could use them to make a matching pillow, I suppose. All right, so this is unit 1B that I just finished. So I went ahead and I've labeled it. I would have wrote it down on my little Post-it note, and then I'm just going to clip it and set it aside. You needed 2 of those. So now we're going to go to unit 1A, and that is going to be making this block. I already have one of them done. Again, it's also a flying geese. So we're going to repeat that process, what I had just done. So on my first leg, see, I need to redo this line on this one because I went off. Sometimes it's kind of hard to see. I want it to be right there on the corner, and it looks like I'm about 1/16 of an inch off. So I'm going to refix that line a little bit. So you want to be right there at that point and right there at that point, and I must have got a little, I did this on Friday, getting all this prep work done. So I'm going to redraw that line, see if I can get it to right where I need it to be. And that's the line I'm going to follow. Sometimes you have to check once before you, just check it again, make sure you got it right. All right, so we're going to go back, get it lined up here, so I see where my line is at now, and I'm just going to sew just left of that line, get my little leader here. And we're going to sew just left of that line. And follow it all the way down. We're going to fold it back, making sure everything matches up just the way you want it, and it looks really good. Give it a quick press. And I'm not going to do that 1/2-inch stitch. We're going to go ahead and trim that off, making sure everything's lined all the way back, and then trim that. So you're going to make 2 of Unit 1B and 2 of Unit 1A, and that's the one we're working on right now. So this one, I'm going to start at the point and come down. So I can still keep it on that left side. Test it, roll it back, looking for it to line up on the edges, and then looking to make sure I have that 1/4-inch seam allowance at my point. Give it a press, and then we trim it off. Any questions out there? Any comments I need to know? Right, so
also, those templates are for sale now.
yep, so I already had one question about seeing if, like I knew that some people might already have our basics, the 2s, 3s, 4s, the basic ones. So we might also have a secondary one where they could just purchase, just the odd sizes. So we'll get that broken out as we're building this page. Had a lot going on here, so we're building this page so that you all have that. All right, so here is my 1As already labeled, and my U1A, U1B. So I'm going to set those aside. So those were the flying geese that were on the outside. So now you've got the pieces that goes in the center. So I've got all of them right here. And these are the seeds. These are going to go around the corner. So those are the ones that's going to be the corners of that block we're working on, which is number 7. So we're going to go to, these are going to be those covered corners where we're going to be folding them back. So let's go, I'm going to pull all these out. And this one right here. All right, so let's go back over here. I'm going to show you what we're doing, because I think I've made one, so you had to have 2 per block. So if you're looking at block 7, you had the 2 that have the green, the covered corners, the green on each side. So that's what this one's going to be. And then you have the unit 2A, where you have to make 8 of these for all 4 of the blocks, where you've got a different color on each side. So you just put them on there. You don't have to guess, and because you can turn the block to get it to the right position. So now we're going to start on that. I'm going to do the one where it's the 2 different colors. So these are the same thing. I still like to sew just left of the line so that it folds back. It's just easier for me. You might be easier for you just sew right of the line if you're coming from this way, but I like to sew where it's to the left of the line, where I'm folding it over. So I line up my corners, looking at my line, and now I'm just going to go, got my leader on here, and now I'm going to go ahead and sew right down that line, or just to the left of that line. Just a thread or 2. And this is another one where you could easily just chain piece them all, but we're just going to do them one at a time. I don't know if he can show that, if you can see that there, but there's my line, but yet my stitches are just, right now they're right, but if I was sewing it like this, you would see it was just left to that line, so that that fold is being taken in, and I know that when I fold this back, it's going to be right on the money, right where I need for it to be. So we'll press that back, and we'll go ahead and get the other side sewn on. Because I like to do just left of the line, I'm going to flip it around, get my little leader here, and we're going to do the exact same thing but on the opposite side. Stitching just left of the line. And then when I flip it back, it should line right up. Give it a little press. And you're going to be making 8 of these, 2 per block. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that off. And then trim this side. So now both of them are done, because I already made one for you. So I'm taking my little Post-it note. It says Unit 2A. We needed 8 of them, 2 per block for Unit 3. So we're going to just go ahead, clip those, ready to go. Now we're going to go ahead and do the other ones, and this one is the same fabric on both sides. Again, one of those I have trouble figuring out which is right side up or wrong side up. And now we'll get the other side done. Back, making sure it lines up, and it's good, and it is good. So let's give it a press, and then we'll trim it. Any questions?
No, nothing yet.
Good, good, good. All right. All right, so both Unit 2Bs are complete. So I'm going to go ahead and put my little Post-it note on there and clip it so I don't lose track of what we were doing for that block. So if I'm not mistaken, all the components that we need to make this block, which was block 7, is complete. So let's go to the wall. We're going to go to the iron, to the wall, and we're going to go ahead and lay this one out, and then we'll sew them all up at the end. I'm going to grab my notebook because I want to get it in right orientation. So we're working on block, I believe this one is the block 7, and that's this one right here. So it has it where you've got going this way. I did have it upside down. So it looks like this. So that's this one right here. You've got the 2 white here, the 2 pieces of the flying geese here. You got the center of the flying geese here, and you got a center here. So we're going to go ahead and take all of our components. We got our flying geese done. I don't know if I've done this right, because this one don't look right. I think this one goes here. Hold on, we might be on block 2. Bear with me a minute. Oh, we're on block 2, we're on this one. I'm getting confused. All these blocks. Yeah, so we're on block 2. So I'm going to turn this one into the right orientation, which is this way. This way. We're not doing 7 yet. 7's next. We're on 2. So we've got a flying geese that's on the top. And then we have this flying geese right here is, looking at my picture, block 2. It's this. Oh, they have it this way. I'm getting all confused, people. Hold on. This way. So this one goes here. And then this one will go here. And then going to the darker ones, you have this one at the top. And then you have this one on the side. And they're all pointing in. The geese are all pointing in. Still got to sew these 4 together, so I can go ahead and start this. So looking at how these are being done, these are the ones that have the green. We're going to sew these up yet to make that center, but it's going to be here, going here and here. We'll spread these out a little bit more. We still have to sew that center. And then we have these 2 with the dark in the center and the light on the side. So that's this component right here. And then you've got the 4 solid pieces. You've got the dark greens, these right here and here. Can't remember what the numbers of them are. And then you've got, I believe these are the F's. This one goes here. I'm looking at block 2, the darker one, and then this one down here. So this is what this one's going to look like when we get it all sewed. So then all of my Post-it notes, I'm done with them. So we'll sew this one up in a second. Let's go ahead and get started on the next one. We'll sew this center piece up next, and at the end of the next one. Then we'll sew all of our rows together. So that's the first one. I'm going to turn this TV on because I don't see it. There you go. Okay. Next one. So this one's lots of flying geese, 4 different ones. So I got all these right here. So we're going to be making unit 1C, unit 1D, unit 1E, and unit 1F. So that's what all of these pieces are. And then we're going to be making unit 4, which turns into unit 5. And then these are the pieces that we're going to be adding for each corner. So let's start with our flying geese and get these all done. I'm going to grab my book because I want to make sure you get everything sewn on in the right direction, because I don't have where I had made a sample of this one. Now I put them on here, but I still always like to second guess, make sure I got it right. So we're going to start with unit 1D. So going to unit 1D, it is going to be the L and M and a K. So that's these fabrics right here. The L, the M, and the K. So here is your M, and then you're going to add a K to the right, and then an M or an L to the left. So we're going to flip it around. So I can always sew just left of the line. Get your little leader started and go ahead and get this sewed. Nope, that might start with the wrong side. I got to start with this one. Turn me around. I am getting confused. Hold on a second. Something's not playing right with me. The L goes on this side. K goes on this side. And I have to go to the left of the line. do the right of the line. What did I do different? Bear with me a minute. My mind just got foggy on me. To the left line. So we're going to be doing this one first. K goes over here. Got it. So I'm actually going to be sewing the K onto the M first. I'm going to fold that back, lines up, give it a press, trim it off, and move to the next one. You don't want, you just always do a second look so you don't get confused like I just did. Just had a brain freeze there. All right, so now we're going to lay this one on. This is my L that's going on my M. And we're going to start at the point so I can keep it left of the line. Look at it first. Make sure you got your 1/4 inch seam allowance for at the tops. You don't want to lose your point. Press it back and then go ahead and trim it. And this one is labeled U1D. So I got my little sticky and I'm going to clip that one and move it on to U1E. I believe I already have the fabrics in the orientation. Looking at it again, I've got a K and an H going on an L. So the first one for me that's getting sewed on is the H. No, hold on, I'm getting lost again. Yep, it's the H. Make sure everything's lined up. Any questions? Everybody good out there?
Misty says you explain everything so well. Rhonda says I love my little triangle iron.
I think I just talk to myself all day long. I just so used to it. Anybody out there talk to themselves? Because I do all the time as I'm thinking things through. And it's been worse since I had my stroke. I just lose things so easily. And I was so worried that I was not going to be able to do well in this class because I did all this prep work last week. And so here I am about an hour before we went live, and I'm trying to refresh my memory on what it was I had done, because sometimes I just lose things for a few days. Okay, so now I'm getting to the second side. Just getting older. And I try to always repeat and do the same things over and over so it just keeps it simple. All right, so now again, we're going to start at the point top and then stitch down just left of that line for me. Now always check before I do any cutting because I might have to rip that stitch out, get old Jack out, and redo it again. It's easier to do that instead of having to cut a whole new fabric. So I always, first thing I'm looking for is making sure when I roll it back before I press it that all of my edges are lining up and I have my good 1/4 inch seam allowance right here, because when I go to sew all these pieces together, I stitch it so that I don't lose my point. Good press, and then trim it off. How many of you actually sew that extra stitch, that extra 1/2 inch, so that you can have an extra 1/2 square triangle? Anybody else out there that do that? I used to do that, and I just kind of got away from it. Now I lost my little sticky. Don't know where it went. so that's all right. I'm going to write another one. So this one that I just finished is Unit 1E. Oh, here it is, Unit 1E. So go ahead and put my little Post-it note on there, and those two are ready to go. So now we got C and F to do yet. So we're going to do C. So when I'm doing my blocks, so looking at Unit 1C, I'm going to put on I always put on my right side first and then my left side. So that way when I flip it around, I can still keep it on that just left of the line. So I've got my all lined up on here. Get my little leader on here, just a little scrap. And we'll go ahead and get this stitched down. Just left of that line. All right, test it, making sure everything goes right to the edge the way you want it. It's looking pretty good. Give it a press. And then we'll trim that off. How many of you have these Martelli scissors? They are awesome. All right, now we're going to put on, going back, this is Unit 1C, so we need to add the K to this one. And you're going to need to make four of these to be able to make the 4 blocks. We're starting at the point for this one. Get my leader started. And here we go. Give it a test. And it goes right where I need it. Give it a good press and trim it back. And that is Unit 1C. One more. This is going to be Unit 1F. You can see clearly here what I've done when I drew my lines. Because this was so light, I used regular pencil. This one's so dark, I used the Martelli pencil for this one. So I just flip them back and forth between the two. Get my leader started. Check it, make sure everything lines up, looks good. Get your little press done. This little iron gets so hot. And then we're going to trim that off. How many of you have that iron? That is a great little iron. Trim off about 1/4 inch from the seam. And now we're going to get our second side done. We come from the top on this one. Roll it back. See, I don't like the look of that one. It came off a little bit here, and it's not quite right here, so we get to do a ripping. That one just did not. I think I sewed right on the line on that one. So we get to rip this one. How about that? Just not happy with that. Sometimes you just, if you're not happy, just do it again. Better to check it before you cut. It just didn't look right. It wasn't going back right, and I knew as soon as I started that it didn't look like I was catching it right. Always check. Here we go. So I'm going to touch it with my iron to make those little needle holes kind of disappear. Might need to spritz it. And we're going to do this again. So where's my line? Kind of lost my line on this one. All right, there we go. Y'all have never pulled out jack before, have you? Ever? All right, so we're going to get this a little bit better. There's my line. Now that one looks a lot better. Oh yeah, that's much better. No, first not right, do it again. Press this back. I see some little needle holes here. So I think the remedy for that is to spritz it with a little water, give it a little rub, and then iron that again. So we're going to look at that, doing that. You'll make those little needle holes just disappear, and then hit it with your iron. I don't think this iron's very hot yet. I'm going to go to the other iron. But that, just by doing a little bit of spritz with some water or some starch, it will make those little holes. And that's a fairly new needle, but it's batik, so they always have a tendency to show that a little bit more. But if you spritz it with a little water, the little holes just all disappear. All right, so that was the last of the flying geese that goes in this block. This is for block 7. So this was the U1F. All right, so I'm going to set these aside. And now we're going to get the components that goes for the corner, the center block. And that's these right here. So you're making, when you're doing this, you're making a unit 4, and then you take the unit 4s, and then they turn into unit 5. So I believe I don't think I sewed any of them up. Yeah, I did. So I got, here is the unit 4 here. So you're just doing this covered corner, this right here on one of them. You're putting the K onto the G, and that is all that you're doing for this one, because then you add the these right here, the M and the O, to make that centerpiece. So we'll go ahead and get all of this done, and then we'll put get the 4 pieces over there sewed up, and then we'll have that centerpiece done on block 2. So this one was kind of easy because you're just doing a simple covered corner on the number G. So all those little 2-inch squares that you cut out of K. You're just doing a simple covered corner on one side. And it's really similar in color. All right, get my little starter here. And just going to sew just to turn this around. Just to the left of that line. And the same thing, you're going to fold it back, making sure everything is lining up really pretty. And it does. Going to give that a press. So you're going to be making 8 of these, I believe. And you're going to need 2 per block. And this now has turned into unit 4 because we're going to take all the 4 pieces to make unit, I got to trim that. Then you're going to make the unit 5. So let's get this trimmed off. So we're going to go to the board and we're going to lay out our block and then we'll sew our centers. And then we'll be able to finish up. Here. That was this one here. Okay, here we go. So we're going to lay out, grab my book. Got to get the notebook. And I think we're going to be getting those up really soon too. All right, so now we're going to lay out all of our components that's going to make block 7. And that's this one right here. I want to make sure I have it laid out properly. We got the 2 going here, in here, in here. All right. So we're going to start with the Unit 1C. So you're going to grab the one that says Unit 1C that you would have put on your little Post-it note. And you have them all going to the center. So I'm going to set it right here. That's this one here, just like that. Then going to grab the next one is D. So we're going to grab our Unit 1D. This one goes here. Repeat of this one, this one. Then we're going to go to E. That's going to be the bottom square. Goes down here. I don't know if, are you able to get this okay? Seeing that? I want to make sure E is in the right spot. And there it is, here, here, here to here. And then the last one is Unit 1F. It's the last flying geese, and it goes on the side. And it matches that one to this one and what's in the book. So then grabbing our Unit 4s, we're going to go ahead and put them on here. So the Unit 4s have it going here, and it has one going here. Pull this out a little bit. So there's where our Unit 4s are going to be. What's part of Unit 4 is solids. So that's going to be it's going to be the 3.5 inch that you did for of M and the 3.5 inch that you did of O. So the O is going to go here, and then your M is going here. So we're going to sew these 4 together. And then the last thing is the cornerstones, and I think I must have left them over here. Here they are. So the corner fabrics, I already got them. So it's an A. I can't remember what all the letters are. You got you got 2 A's and you got 2 T's. And they're all cut at 3.5 inches. So the A's go here and here. And the T's go in the opposite. Here and here. So that is going to be all the pieces to make this one. So we're going to go ahead and sew these 2 and then these 2 together and then sew those all together, and then we'll do the same for sew these 2 together and sew these 2 together and then sew them all together, and then we'll be able to go ahead and start finishing the constructing of both of the final steps. So I'm going to grab them like this and like this, and we're going to take these over here. I'll always have my book with me. Make sure I don't get them out of order. Here and here, we're working on block 7, and here. So I'm going to sew these 2 together, and then I'm going to iron them in the opposite direction so that they will nest. And I'll show you how we do that. Left both of them. I set all 3 glasses out here, so I never leave one. And I got the glasses at the cutting station, ironing station, and here. So I still left a pair over there. All right, so I'm going to take these 2 the top two, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch them together. Right sides together. And now we got to set our machine back up to 1/4 inch. And I'm going to slide my needle over just a couple of dots so I can do that scant quarter. Grabbing the second set, and we're going to just chain piece these through. Sure everything's lining up. That didn't sound good. Hold on. Oh, my thread wrapped around my needle. I don't know why it does that every now and then. Okay, here we go. All right, so here are my 2 pieces sewn. So what we're going to do is I'm going to press these in the opposite direction. So I'm going to press this one towards the darker side, and I'm going to press this one, looks like it's going to be towards the light. So they're going to be pressed in the opposite direction. I do give it a finger press, and then I'm just going to go ahead and press it. My little iron that you got in your little nest. So here they are like this. So now we're just going to place them on top. And we're going to feel where that seam is going to nest right there in the center. It's going to look really nice. And we're just going to stitch our 1/4 inch down. And you've got your perfect little match there in the center. And I'm trying to see, did it have a size that it finishes out to? I was thinking that it does finish out to 6.5 inch square. So you've got a choice at this point. You can either stitch it where you can, where you're ironing that seam, where you could press it to one side. I think what I had done on my finished one is I think I did. I pressed it open. So I pressed that final seam open. So you can choose whichever you want to do, but I went ahead and pressed. I found it's easier just to press that seam open. So I'm going to go ahead and just give this a press. I also like to check to make sure that I'm at that 6.5 inches. So just using my, here that's 6.5 and 6.5. So it's right at the 6.5 inches. So that is my center. So this one is done. And it goes right here. So I press that seam that's going across open here. And it's at 6.5 inches. So then we're going to sew this row, and this row. So let's go ahead and get this one done. Gathering it the same way as what I did earlier, going from left to right. And I think I flipped it around. Here to here. And then here to here. So I always like to take a look at my book to make sure I have it laid out right. And again, this is block number 2 we're working on, I think. Yeah, block 2. So I'm looking at block 2, and I want to make sure I've got them all in the right orientation before I even sew it together. And that's exactly what I want it to do. So I'm going to go ahead and take the first row and sew them together. Now you're going to have some seams right here. So one of the things you could do is you could have flipped one up. But I just do my best to just match them up really good where that seam is going to come in, 1/4 inch in. You could just go ahead and take one of these and flip it up so you can get that seam to nest, but you might have to re-iron it to do that. But I'm just going to keep it So I've got a good bump that I'm going to be going over right there. We're just going to go ahead and match it up real good. And we're going to sew 1/4 inch down. I always like to just get a couple anchoring stitches just to hold it. Fold it back real quick to make sure everything's going to hit right where I want it to hit. And then go ahead and stitch down. Before I do anything with it, I like to open it up and make sure that I like that look that's going to be right here. I want it to have a nice little peak right there. But if I was to flip one of those stitches back, and I could do that on this one, I can take one of these and I'm going to stitch this, flip this one where I had it flipped towards the dark, I'm going to flip it in just to see what, just to show you. You might want to do that if you want that to nest a little bit better so that it, so you're not, so it's just easier for when you're sewing it down and trying to guess that when you're going over those two seams that are going in the same direction. So this one I went ahead and stitched it in the opposite direction. I'm going to take a quick peek, make sure everything is the same before I go to stitch it down. This is the 2, so it is green and light, and there we go. Green with the green is there. So now when I lay this down, these 2 green pieces right here, because I flipped it so that I've got one seam going one way and one going the other, it should nest up really good. And I actually can feel it under my fingers. So now I'm going to go ahead and stitch this side down. Feeling it nesting in there. And coming on down. I haven't pressed anything yet, but I just opened it up. And now you see that peak. It's a little bit more defined. I think a little bit better than the first one, but it's pretty good. Can't see it from 10 miles away. There you go. All right, so now we got to go ahead and press our seam one way and press the seam the other way. So I am going to go ahead and get this one pressed so I can get it all nested in the center. So then I'm going to press this one in the opposite direction. And that should now go together really nice. Just making sure it's double checked before I sew it together that I have it laid out correctly. And then we're going to go ahead and stitch it down. You're going to have that same issue, but it's too late to flip it. So you're going to have that little same issue. So I always start with a couple of anchoring stitches first, just to hold it, and then I go under and I check again to make sure, number one, that my stitch is going to nest, and that I have this laid where I want it to lay for the next stitch. Kind of hold it with my finger as I go over that, making sure my nesting is right there. Go to the next section and checking this one right here. Should be a good sized bump going on right there. And stitching it down. Do a final check, making sure everything is lining up. I got my point here, got of course the 2 points there. Center seam is right where I need for it to be. I was looking at this point here and this point here. So the next thing is, now I'm going to go ahead and press that seam open. Just kind of open it with my finger. You can grab your little pressing tool, just giving it a lift, just lifting it and flipping it over, and then I'm going to go ahead and make sure it's staying open and give it a press. And then we'll check it to make sure that we are at the 6.5 inches, making sure nothing's flipped over. And this didn't lay. We're going to make sure we have a 6.5 inch block, that we don't have to trim anything. we're just going to go over here. Lay it on my mat. And it is right on the money for 6.5 inches. A little bit divot there, but it should be all right. But that is my 6.5 inch block. So we're going to go over here. And now we're going to start putting all our components together to make the 2 blocks. So we have the greens going here to here. And these 2 going here to here. And so that is the layout for this one. Any questions? Are we good?
No questions.
All right, go gather my little stickers up. My iron working. Now I've got all these little Post-it notes. I don't need no more. So you'll go through the Post-it notes. All right, so now we're going to start here. So let's start with block 2. So we're going to sew these together. So I just kind of gather them up. Row 1, row 2, row 3. Clip, clip, and this one. This is where, and I don't know why I didn't think about it sooner. I would have been using my designer block for this process right here, because I could easily have just laid the whole thing out on my designer block and easily carry it to my machine. But I didn't have that with me. So now I'm going to relay this out as it was on the board. And I'm working on C and D. 2, 3. And then 1, 2, 3. All right, so there we go. So when I go to sew these together, I think, I'm not quite sure if these are going to go into the center or if they're going to be pressed out. And I think I had already had that figured out on this one. All right, so the center strip is going to be, the seams I'm going to press in, and the top and the bottom strip, I'm going to press those seams out. So that way they will all nest up really good. So pressing to the center on the inner ones, the center row, pressing out on the top and bottom row. You can do this either way. I'm just going to flip this one over. Lining up my edges and sew that 1/4 inch down. Now I could go ahead and do what is called the next one down, the next one down, and do some chain piecing, but we're just going to do it the old-fashioned way, one at a time. So we were pressing these out. It's the top row. So I'm going to give it a press to the outside. And then set this out here. So pressed out. So now these 2 are going to be pressed in. Now I like to sew this part where I have my flying geese point up on top, and I'll do it, and I'll flip this around so I can have it that way too, because I want to see where my stitch is going to lie. I want my stitches to come, as I'm coming down, that I hit just right of that point where the threads crisscross. It's easier to see than if I have it flipped up this way. So I don't want to lose my point here, but on this block also, I want to make sure that that point is right there at that seam. So you're kind of looking at 2 things when you're putting this section together. So I'm like getting my edges done, but I'm also going to flip this back a little bit, and I'm looking to make sure that my point, the little point of my flying geese, is going to be right there on that center seam. That's what I'm looking for. And I want to make sure that I don't sew that point, but I'm going to have my needle come in. It should be 1/4 of an inch where it's going to come in just to the right of that point. Don't go to the left of that point because then you're sewing into your point. So you're going to sew that 1/4 inch and you're going to come all the way down. So you want to make sure there's 2 things you're looking for. That point to be on that seam and that you don't lose your point. So line up your top, give yourself a couple of anchoring stitches. Now you can you can use a needle and you can secure it if you want to make sure that's in there, but I'm just going to go ahead and just sew this, and I think I got it. I'm just going to hold it with my finger till I get to that point, and I'm coming up now onto that, and I want to make sure that I'm just to the right of it, and there we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and line up the edge, the last piece, and then just stitch it on down. Now we're pressing this one to the center. So I'm going to fold it in, and I'm looking, this is what I'm looking for. Just giving a finger press to the center. I'm looking to make sure I didn't lose my point, which I haven't. My point is right there, and my point is right there at that seam. That's what I'm wanting it to do. So now we're going to turn this around, and we're going to repeat that on the other side. Now you could put a pin in here to hold it. But I'm going to roll it back a little bit, and it looks like it's going to be, and just by rolling it along, just rolling this along right here, I can see that that's going to be right there on my seam. That's what I want it to do. So I'm going to put myself a couple little anchoring stitches in. Adjust a little bit, roll it back a little bit, make sure it's hitting right where I need for it to be. And we're going to go ahead and stitch this down. Several things you're thinking of. You want to make sure you got that scant 1/4. You want to make sure that that hits in that spot. You want to make sure that you don't lose your point, so you're going to just sew just right of that point as you're coming through, right here. And then you're going to go ahead and finish it off to the end. Knowing that these are being pressed in, I'm going to go ahead and finger press it in. Got a lot of bulk that's going on right there. So finger press it in, give it a good look, and again, my point is there, and it's right there at the seam where I needed it to be. Y'all see that? So that one's good. I'm going to press this where the seam is going in. Flip it over, make sure I have everything going the way I want it. Do the same thing for this side. And there we go. So that is the second one, and make sure I have it in the right orientation. There we go. Now the last one, and we're just stitching these on. Last row.
Misty said, can I see the flying geese points?
Sure. Misty, let me show that. Let me get this one done. I'll show you the final. All right, so here's the point of that flying geese. I sewed just to the right of it, so I didn't lose my point, and my point, I need it to be laying right there at that seam. So do y'all see that? Let me hold this back. That's what you're looking for. And then here's the other one. You want it to not lose your points, but you also want that seam to hit right there at the seam of the previous block. Now, on the last row, we are pressing these out. So I press to the center on the middle row, but on the last row, we're pressing it out. So then we go to put the rows together. A couple things I'm looking for is making sure I've got my 1/4 inch seam allowance here and here, because this is now going to be sewn onto here. So these seams are pressed out, these seams are pressed in. So when I go to sew this on here, I flip it over because I want my point, my flying geese, to be seen. I want my flying geese point to be right here at this seam, and I want my seams to nest up right here and here. So the top ones were pressed out. So I'm just going to go ahead and set this on here. I like to do a couple of anchoring stitches, and then we'll adjust it as we go. So we'll get my first anchoring stitches on here, making sure my seam is nesting up right here. So I'm going to sew to where it nests up. Now the next part is where I'm going to be sewing that flying geese. And again, I don't want to sew my point, so I'm going to sew just to the right. I want my needle to drop down at the right of where those stitches cross over that you'll see. And I'm also making sure if I roll this back a little bit, that my point is going to be resting right there on that seam that you're going to be having. There's a seam there, and you want your point right there, so that's what I'm looking for, making sure it all lines up right there. I'm kind of holding it with my finger. You can pin it. And I'm coming up onto where the threads cross, so I'm going to just make sure that I am not going over, just right there on it. Now, once I've passed that, I've got the last seam to nest up. So I'm going to nest that up, hold it with my finger, and then sew to the edge. All right, so we get to look at it. Folding it back, I got nesting seams here, and I did not lose my point. That's what to me was the most important part right there, not losing my point right here. All right, one more row. And again, I flip it so that I have the point of the flying geese, and I guess I want to go over that again. On the back side of your flying geese, you're going to see these stitches that are crossing right here, So when I'm talking about sewing to the right of that, right here, I don't sew on this side of flying geese. I'm stitching to where I am just right here. I'm coming in right here so that I don't lose my point. If I was to stitch into here, you're going to lose that point. So you want to keep your point, so there you're going to sew right there. So the most important things with this section is nesting this seam, not catching your point here, but making sure that that point is going to be in the seam of the block that you're sewing it on, and then nesting this seam. If I'm repeating myself too much, just let me know. Just going over and over. Well, I promise you, when we get done with this, you guys will be pros at this. All right, so I'm going to, first off, nest my seam here. First nesting. All right, so now I'm coming up to this flying geese, and I don't want to lose my point, but I'm going to roll it back for a second, making sure that my point is in that seam and it's right where I need it to be. Now I'm going to just sew up to that, keeping my scant 1/4 inch. There we go. Now we got the last seam to nest up. And then holding that. And then off to the end. We'll fold it back so you can see. Seam is nested here. Point is not lost, and it's right at that seam here. And it's nested here. So those are the things you're looking for. So what I like to do at this point, I think, is what I did was I pressed those seams that we just did to connect it all, I pressed those seams open. I don't have my little tool here. It's way down there. I didn't even think to grab it. So I'm just going to give these a little finger press just to lightly tap it, because I'll flip it over and press it. You're going to press your seam open right here. I should grab that, but I'm not using it right now. Doing it old school. Pressing that one open. I'm going to press this side open, and then we'll give this a good press, and I'm going to lay it underneath my, my block press to make it all nice and crisp. It'll keep its shape a good long time. Pressing this seam open here to the edge. Now that's just my preference. You can have the seams go in whatever direction you want them to go, but I'm just pressing it. Get it nice and hot. I am trying not to do bias stretching. I like to go with the grain across and this way. I don't like going catty corner. Sometimes I think that might warp it. You know what I'm talking about, right? You don't want to warp your block. You go with the grain. You press with the grain of where the fabric is going. And once I got it nice and heated, I'm going to just set this down on there. And we're going to let this set. And we're going to move on to the next one. So now we're going to go ahead and put the components together to make this block. So I'm going to put them in the order. I always go from left to right as I stack them up. Here's my top one. Middle row. If you get into the habit of way you do things and being consistent on, it just makes it easier if things get out of line. Now this, this quilt's different. It's got tons of colors, tons of letters. You just want to kind of get in the habit of being consistent on how you do things and how you lay things out. Whatever works in whatever works for you in your brains to figure it all out. So being that I always know the top one is the one that's all the way over here. So I go right here, and I put it back into the order of how it was on the wall. And then I always double check it by looking at my photo. One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. And then last, you've got the T. You got the unit 1, U, 1E, and then A. So there's the components. So we're going to go ahead and do what we just did. I don't need these right now. And put it all together. I will just start with this way. Starting with row 1. This is going to be pressed out. The center one's going to be pressed in. Making sure I got a good seam allowance. So this one kind of has me concerned right here on the top. Like I didn't catch it at a good quarter. I think it'll be all right. So we're pressing these to the outside. The middle row is being pressed in. So like I did before, I want my flying geese to be on top for this row. Doing a couple anchor stitches. And I am making sure that it's going to line, that my point is going to be right there on that seam. Rolling it back to that point, and there it's right there. Look at it again. I moved it. It's right there. do not want to sew in. Clean up my edges. And these are being pressed in, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it in. All right, so here's the situation. I'm going to show you this. So even though my seam is literally right there, my point is at that seam, I actually have a little bit of a gap on that point. So I could go ahead and try to sew it in a little bit more, or I can just leave it. You see that? I have a little bit much of that point showing. So I'm going to look and see if I bobbled over a little bit. It actually looks pretty good. So it's a call. It's your call. So this one is getting pressed to the inside. Maybe there's a press to the inside. Make sure I got my seams going the way I want them. And now we're going to do the other side. This one's kind of short. Couple anchoring stitches. Now we'll roll it back, making sure my center is going to be right there on that seam, and it is right there. This one, we press this one in. This one's right there where I wanted it to be. It's right there at the seam, and it's right there at the point. Let's see, do I got this upside down? Because I think I flipped it around. This is the T&T, so this goes this way. Yep, I had it flipped. And then last row, these get pressed out. All right, so we just got two more rows to go. Making sure everything is lining up the way you want. And we're going to go ahead and get this sewed up. Making good time today, I think. So we're wanting our seams to nest, making sure we don't lose our point and that it's in the seam. And still at my scant quarter. So that's several things you're thinking out at once. Nesting the seam. Going to the point, rolling it back, making sure the point of the flying geese is going to be in that seam, and it is. So into there. Making sure you got the last nest of the seams. So I set that up before I roll over there. And then sew into the end. press these seams open. So I like to roll it back, making sure I got all of our points where I need for them to be. And last row. And green stitches. It's just a monotony, repeat and repeat. Nest the seam. Making sure your point is at the seam. Stitch into there. And nest your last seam. And to the end. Pulling it back, getting a look. Everything looks good. So let's get this last seam pressed. We're going to press these open. This one's been sitting under the seam press, so it should be good to go. And this one is this block right here. There's block 2. Only got 2 more of those to go. Now let's get the third one done, the last one done. So we're going to kind of give this a little finger press just to pop the seams a little bit. Tap, tap, tap. That one did not go the way I wanted. And let's get the other side. Tap, tap, tap. Then we'll flip it over. Any questions for me?
No, beautiful technique.
Beautiful technique. Tap, tap, tap. Press that one back a little bit more. All right, so now we're going to give it a good press. And I'm going with the grain of the fabric. I don't, if something looks bobbled, it's probably because the seam is moving on you, and that's what it is right here. Seam doesn't want to lay, you want it to lay. All right, so I think that's going to be it. Touching little spots, it's flipping up on me. Get it nice and hot. And then I'm going to set the block press right on there. Give this a couple seconds. So I think that's good. Got 2 more of each one to do. The last thing I would do is probably make sure that everything measures out to the 12 and a half. All right, so there is block 7, the construction of block 7, and the construction of block 2. And I think this is pretty much everything that we got for block of the month 2. Well, there you go. All right, so let's take a minute So do you have any questions or anything? Is there anything I need to tell Diane? Ta-da! Hey, hi, Greg. Thank you, Miss Donna. Of course, I didn't catch any, I don't know what all is going on. Let's see if I can get back, see if I can see. I don't know how far back it'll let me go back and see in comments. Like, I don't even see anything on my phone. But I think that is everything. So let's take a look at the calendar and see when is our next class. Our next one is going to be on March the 26th. March the 26th will be our block 3, or month 3. So in month 3, we will be doing, looks like just block 3. For month 3, it's going to be block 3, and we will be making 4 of those. So month 3 looks pretty good. So there's month 3. This is what we're going to be doing for month 3. So it looks like we're getting away from flying geese for a minute. No flying geese here. Do you see a flying geese in there? So that is going to be next month. On March the 26th, we'll be doing this block. We'll be making 4 of those. It's called month 3, and it's actually block 3. So it's going to be 12.5 inches. So you've got lots of different fabrics in there. So that looks pretty cool. So this one should be pretty easy to do. I haven't taken the time to really look at all the different blocks. We don't stay away from flying geese long because we go into to block 4. We're back to flying geese. So lots of flying geese in this one. I'm interested to see, because I saw this one earlier, month 5 is pretty interesting block. So that one's coming up. So you got a block 5, A and B. So we'll be doing, that's going to be a fun technique to make this one that's coming up in about 2 months. So yeah, that one's going to be fun. So we're going to be learning some things that might be a little bit out of our comfort zone of things that we do. So I think it's going to be a really good experience. And then when we go to put it in, more flying geese on month 7. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I truly enjoy doing this. This is something I've not done. I've never taught a block of the month, but I've taught lots of classes. So I thought this would be fun. All right, so any questions for me? Are we good? I can't wait to see the blocks that you guys have done. Huh?
Missy said if I could find out about the kits, that would be great.
Okay, yes. I'm going to, what is tomorrow? Tomorrow is Wednesday. Do we have a class tomorrow? I don't think I have a class tomorrow. So I think, yes, I do have it. I'm filming in the morning. So tomorrow afternoon, which is Wednesday, tomorrow afternoon I'm hoping to get over there, or Thursday or Friday. And I'm going to be, well, Friday I've got something else going on. But I'm hoping Wednesday or Thursday is when I get to go over there, look at the fabrics, and see what I have left to make a full kit of the block of the month. And then we're going to be getting the rest of the items up there that we're using, the specialty templates. I'm going to see if I can get that divided by just the specialty off shapes or off sizes that are not in our normal catalog, and all the other good things. So just bear with us. We're all getting it out there. March the 26th will be for month 3. Thank you so much for all the tips and teaching. I hope that's helping. If I could go, okay, all right. Thank you again so much. Again, if you have any questions at all, the best way to reach me is to email me. My email is learn@martellinotions.com. If you have any questions on the block of the month, just put it into the subject line, block of the month questions. If you have any questions, just send it to there. You can make a comment on here, but sometimes I don't always go back and read all the comments that's in here. I might look at them later tonight, but then I don't go back after that. So the best way to reach me, if you have any questions, is learn@martellinotions.com. All right, so next class is March the 26th. Post your pictures. Go to the Martelli Quilters group and post the blocks that you're doing. I'd love to see them. So we're going to have fun. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. We did really good. You all have a wonderful evening, and I will probably be seeing you again. I don't know. I think the next time I'm on camera is Friday. So see you all on Friday. Have a good day. Bye-bye, everybody.